Welcome back to the Call on Our Shot podcast, episode 4. You can watch us every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time on YouTube, or you can download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Now, I'm Austin, joined by Logan and Sam. You guys know them if you've been watching the podcast. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. This is the Call on Our Shot podcast. Today, we're going to recap week 2. We're going to react to it, give our biggest takeaways. We're also going to give our week 3 predictions for some big matchups like the Bucs versus the Rams and the Packers versus the 49ers and more. We're going to answer your guys' questions that you sent to us on Twitter at Calling Our Shots. So make sure you're following us there, as well as your favorite segment. We're giving our week 3 underdog picks. And boy, week 2 was crazy. 2 of us cashed again. Only one person is undefeated in underdog picks. We'll figure out who that is later. And then lastly, we'll preview Thursday Night Football, talk about the Panthers versus Texans, but everything is timestamped down below in case you want to skip around. But I'm going to first let Logan start off, get some things off his chest. Take it away.
Austin, I appreciate that. And, last week I had some people, some Calling Our Shot stands rallying to my defense.
Wait. Let me do something real quick. Sam, I got you something. I got you.
Yeah. Yep. Now that's more like it. First of all, that's what I needed. Last week I got a lot of hate for the homer pick for saying the Carolina Panthers were going to take down the New Orleans Saints, who just looked so impressive against the Green Bay Packers. Absolutely not. Jameis Winston came crashing back down to earth like the sorry POS quarterback that he is, just a turnover machine. I absolutely died. I fell off the couch laughing. I fell off the couch laughing when Jameis was being sacked, and he just went, yeet, and just threw it up and got picked off. I mean, that's what he does. I tried to tell you guys the Carolina Panthers are a much improved defense. There's only one fantasy defense that's gotten 10 plus points a week. That is the Carolina Panthers. Yeah. For any fantasy players out there, learn that useful trivia. But again, you have a much improved offense as well, led by the best running back in the league, Christian McCaffrey. Run CMC. I'm wearing the Run CMC shirt for a reason. It's to do my victory lap for the Carolina Panthers. Hopefully nobody's sleeping on us anymore, because we are 2-0. Make it 3-0 on this Thursday night coming up.
All right, Sam, you can take this one.
Well, when we were coming at you last week, and you have a point. We came at you pretty hard. We were looking at the data we had from week 1, right? Which was that the Panthers kind of beat a close one with the Jets, not convincingly, and the Saints shellacked the Packers. Now, we should have known better, right? The NFL, there's so much parity. You can't count on, X team beating Y team beating Z team, and expecting X to be way better than Z. It never works that way, right? Every week's different. So clearly, yes, that was an overreaction. Saints are not as good as we thought when they came out and beat the Packers, right? And the Panthers are better than their measly little, 4-point win over the Jets. So I see what you're saying. I wouldn't stretch it too much further than that. They're still, a tough division, and I don't like them more than the Bucs, that's for sure. But yeah, you want to be the second best team in the NFC South, I will give you that title. But I don't know. I'd be careful as a Panthers fan. I don't know. Lost to Austin.
Yeah, I understand. I'm taking this off. I've had enough of that. And I got to say, I'll give the Panthers their respect. They look dominant, and their defense, like you said, Logan, they looked really good. I underestimated them, and they got the Texans coming up, and we'll talk about that at the end of the podcast. And I think they should win that game, but we'll give our official score predictions. But they looked impressive. I won't deny it. They looked very good, and I caught everyone off guard. I mean, the spread was a little fishy, as we talked about off camera. It was a little fishy, and that's a reason I didn't include the Panthers or the Saints spread in my normal weekly video. But props to you. Round of applause. I'm happy for you. And I'm happy for Sam Darnold, even though we are Jets fans, Sam and I, that is. And, we're congrats to you, but congrats to me too, because who else cashed an underdog pick? This guy, 2-0. Of course, I picked the Cowboys, and, they cashed for us. But what I really want to talk about, same game, Cowboys, my call, my bold prediction of the year, Mike Williams. I said he would be a top 25 fantasy receiver. Boom. He has had 2 great weeks, and I love him. And I'm in on Mike Williams. I have been all year. I don't want people to come and start saying, you got to start him in fantasy football, because that was me. I've been preaching to the choir, start Mike Williams. He would be a sleeper into fantasy football. And I'm just happy to see that pick finally pan out. Granted, we're 2 weeks into the season, but I'm still excited for him. And that's all I'm going to say. I got another underdog pick, and we're going for the big shot later in the video, and we'll see how that one goes. But congrats to you, Logan. Again, we'll talk about your Panthers in a little bit. We're not going to talk more about them. You don't deserve that much airtime. Absolutely not.
Yeah,
but we're
leave me
going to
alone.
move it. We're going to move into the biggest takeaways from week 2. And Sam, I'm going to let you start with it. What was your biggest takeaway from week 2 in the NFL?
Well, it happened last night watching that Monday Night Football game between the Packers and the Lions. I think everyone was, overreacting after week 1 that Rodgers was done, that his career was over, that he didn't know how to throw the football, that he didn't care, all that stuff. And, I think I said last week that, hey, when you're Rodgers, you can afford to do that and not have everyone overreact. And he came back. He had a great performance, 4-touchdown night, a definitive win. The Packers are still the Packers. Yes, they do have some problems, on defense. Look how many points they gave up to the Lions. They got exposed by TJ last night. But they're still the Packers. They're still going to be a contender in the NFC. And so I think Rodgers is back, and sure, he might not have an MVP performance, but he's still going to be the top 5 quarterback we always count on.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard to take away a lot from beating the Lions. I mean, sure, you could beat the Detroit Lions, who will probably end up with double-digit losses easily, maybe 12, 13, 14 losses this year, maybe only winning 5 games at most. It was impressive. Of course, you got to beat that team. If they lose to the Lions, that's everyone hitting the panic button. Like, what the heck's going on in Green Bay? So glad they bounced back. Aaron Jones obviously had a field day. If you came back in your Monday night or in your fantasy football matchup, thanks to Aaron Jones. Congrats to you, because he absolutely went off. But I'm not necessarily saying, Green Bay's back. They're going to be the number 1, number 2 seed in the NFC. They still have a lot of good games and challenging teams to play, including this week, which we'll talk about the 49ers versus the Packers in a little bit. Logan, what was your takeaway about that Packers, as well as your biggest takeaway from week 2 in the NFL?
Yeah, just watching the Packers, you got to beat Detroit. Like, that absolute must have. And Detroit had a lot of self-inflicted wounds. They're just one of those undisciplined teams that it always feels like Detroit loses the game rather than the other team wins it. That was the classic case last night. I'm not super impressed with Aaron Rodgers. We've seen him do it before. Congrats, throwing some little checkdowns to Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones doing the rest. He had a big night, of course. Kudos to him. But that defense, you brought it up already. That defense is going to absolutely sell them later on in the playoffs.
Right.
Kevin King. Yeah, Kevin King. What the heck is that? Right? He cannot cover.
He looked like me in flag football.
Yeah, he gets roasted and toasted all the time. Look, you're gonna have Aaron Rodgers playing hero ball week in and week out. No, absolutely not. I'm still not sold on the Packers. Yes, they're in a division that they'll win by default, but come playoff time, there's a lot of teams I like over them. But that kind of leads, talking about playoffs, that kind of leads to my biggest takeaway of week 2. And that's two playoff teams and a team that finally got over the hump. The Ravens finally beating the Kansas City Chiefs. Lamar Jackson said it right. He got the monkey off his back. Man, I was so ready. I was already thinking about my spiel for the next day. I was thinking about how I was going to call Lamar washed and kind of call him Cam Newton 2.0 with only being able to run the ball. But he really shut me up. He shut up a lot of critics against that Kansas City defense. Yes, I know Kansas City defense didn't look amazing, but Lamar Jackson is something special. And he once again reminded us that even, despite all those injuries, that the Ravens are still a force to be reckoned with. You'll probably see them come playoff time.
Sam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know what happened to that Chiefs offense in the fourth quarter, not being able to put up any points. I think it's a good thing for the Kansas City, team as a whole to realize that, okay, yeah, we're not this unbeatable, generational, we're not going to run the table. We're not going to go 17-0. Kind of like lower those expectations beginning on in the season. It's a little bit of a wake up call. I think now is when you want it to be like, okay, hey, as a team, let's regroup. We're still the Kansas City Chiefs. But you're right. I had doubts I never had doubts about the Chiefs. I absolutely had doubts about the Ravens going into the season. And, a definitive performance like that any doubt you have about Lamar, I think is put to bed after that. Yeah, he's back. And now, right, they're the front runners in the AFC North.
It's going to be tough. The Ravens, obviously, they're very injured. And literally you see Lamar Jackson kind of taking over the show and having to do it all by himself. Now, lucky for them, they get a week against the Lions, and I believe that's who they play this week. So probably get an easy win this week and probably be able to rest their players, because Lamar Jackson was going absolutely off in Sunday Night Football. And I think that leads into my next play, which is about injuries. Now, that was my biggest takeaway from week 2 was there were so many injuries. And as you guys know, and maybe people off the camera don't know, I was in Virginia, I was traveling, and I didn't get a lot of time to watch all of week 2. I watched obviously the later games, the 4:00 games, and Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football. But I had my phone on me, and Adam Schefter was blowing up my phone with injuries. It was Darrell Henderson going out, Deontay Johnson getting injured last play, Carson Wentz, not one, but 2 twisted or ankle sprains, Tua getting injured, Baker Mayfield, Amari Cooper, Derek Carr. For every 49ers running back was out of the game. Tyrod Taylor, who we'll talk about in a little bit, I think it was a ton of injuries. And the hard thing is it's not a lot of injuries that are like they're out for the year, which is a good thing, I would say. I mean, Tyrod Taylor, I know, is out for at least 3 weeks, and he's probably the most long term out of all those injuries I just noted. Maybe Jermichael Hasty, but no one was starting him in fantasy football. But it's tough to see all these injuries. And, I hope week 3 is a little bit nicer to people. I know a lot of these guys don't necessarily start on a lot of fantasy football teams, but they're still important players like Amari Cooper, who I think avoided a major injury. Same thing with Deontay Johnson, but Darrell Henderson might miss some time, at least a week or 2. It's tough, and I hate to see injuries. And that was my biggest takeaway because it was blowing up my phone left and right. So, but without that, let's move into week 3. We're going to look past those injuries, and we're going to talk about week 3, and we're going to talk about 2 big matchups. And this kind of goes with what we've been talking about earlier. And I'm going to give you a question, Logan, because you obviously, you're kind of hating on Sam with his Packers. What have you liked out of the Rams? Because they got a big week 3 showdown against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And surprisingly, at this moment, LA Rams are favored by 1.5 points. So it's more or less a pick 'em. Who do you got in this game? What are your thoughts? Go take the show away.
Yeah, I like I said, I hated a little bit on Matt Stafford. I didn't believe that you can necessarily plop and drop a quarterback in there like Tom Brady, but it's working so far. Now, granted, defenses don't feel like guarding Cooper Kupp. He's always running wide open. I don't understand that one bit. But we can talk about the Rams offense all we want, but it really comes down to the Rams defense, which I like a lot better than the Bucs defense. Bucs defense was getting exposed a little bit, even by Matty Ice. Matty Ice was throwing for some yards. He was thinking and dunking all over that defense. The Rams defense hasn't shown a lot of flaws. Jalen Ramsey, lockdown corner. Of course, you've got Aaron Donald. There's names all up and down that defense. That's why I think, they're going to put pressure on Brady. Brady hates when players are up in his face. They're going to put pressure on him. And I understand totally why the Rams are favored, because Matt Stafford definitely gives that offense an advantage. And I think the defense is what's going to be the deciding factor in that one. So I'm right with the Rams, who are slight favorites, as you said.
Yeah, I appreciate Sam smiling because he has Cooper Kupp in our fantasy football league. And I believe he is wide receiver 1. Forgot to note Mike Williams, currently, I believe, wide receiver 5 in fantasy football. Sam, what are your thoughts on this game? It's obviously in LA, so this Tampa is going to have to travel cross country. What do you think? What is your kind of overall takeaway from this game? Because I would argue this is probably the biggest game on the slate, at least the most, future impacts. That's the future NFC championship kind of type game feel to it.
That'll be the 4:00 game. I'm sitting down watching start to finish. Absolutely. I have so much interest in seeing how that one goes. I think, as I was watching Tom Brady and his 5 touchdown performance last week, I kind of had that feeling. It was almost like that last Peyton Manning Super Bowl run where you just kind of knew, like, it was just like he was in so much control of that game. Tom Brady is just clicking right now. And so if there's any offense that can expose, Ramsey and the Rams defense, I think it's him. And so, yeah, but we'll see. It's going to be an absolute slugfest. I think it's going to be high scoring across the board. I think that's the fantasy game. Get as many players in Bucs Rams that you can in your fantasy lineup. But you know what? Even though they're going west, which I never like, I like the Bucs. They felt like they're one of those destined teams this year. So I don't know. I'm thinking the Bucs in a close one.
What is your final score? I'll go final score for everyone. Sam, what is your final score?
I think like 38-35 Bucs.
Jeez, you might as well load everyone. I mean, hey, that's saying both defenses, they ain't showing up. They're going out to party on Saturday night. My overall takeaway is, like I said, this was a must-watch game. I mean, luckily it's on at 4:00, so not a lot of other games kind of competing for your watch time. But I'm excited to see what Tom Brady does. I mean, you look at the first 2 games. Obviously played the Cowboys. They didn't really get a lot of pass rush. He obviously played the Falcons this week. Not a great defense either. Now he's getting the Rams, which have a lot of hype to them. Whether or not they're necessarily as good as people might have expected, they still did give up 21 points, something like that, to the Colts, which aren't necessarily an imposing defense. But I think their main strategy, or at least the reason the Rams are so good, is they take away the run. Well, this Bucs team isn't even running the ball at all. You got Rojo and Leonard Fournette. They're hardly getting that many touches a game. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Rams tackle their defense in terms of like, I know the Rams like to play very deep off people, and that kind of plays into Tom Brady's wheelhouse. You know, he's not necessarily a guy that's chucking it 50 yards, although he has been doing that in Tampa Bay more so than he did with New England. But I'm excited to see this game. I'm going to give you a score prediction. I do think the Bucs pull it out, but I'm going to go a lower scoring game, like a 27-24 on a late field goal. So I guess I'm taking the under, which is 55. Logan, what's your final score prediction?
Well, I got to address both of you guys being Bucks homers. I mean, you're sipping the Tom Brady Kool-Aid over there, both of you guys. I mean, come on. Did you watch what the Bucks defense has been doing? And again, I look at the teams they faced. Obviously, the Falcons don't get me excited one bit. The Cowboys, yeah, I know Dak Prescott carved them up week 1. I just don't know how you necessarily think Brady's going to play catch up with them. I have the Rams winning in a kind of a decisive one. This is going to be kind of put the world on notice game. I have it being 31-21 Rams.
Hey, that's a bold prediction, but I respect it. Moving on to another week 3 matchup, and it's going to be, we can talk about this one a little bit later. Well, actually, we'll take a step back and answer a social question. It's going to be real quick. Talking about the man, Cooper Kupp. This is a question from Betting Sports God on Twitter. Like I said, we'll answer any questions you guys send our way. He asked, is Cooper Kupp a lock every single week to take his over in receptions or receiving yards? I would say, yeah. I'm curious what line we get. Wish I had a line at the time of recording this, but we do not have a line. I'm curious how much the books adjust because, like Sam said, like Logan said, Cooper Kupp's been absolutely ridiculous through 2 weeks of the season. I do expect him to come down to earth. Cooper Kupp has done this in the past. He had I think a 215 something like that receiving yard game in London, England 1 week a couple of years back, and then he didn't really do much the rest of the season. So curious to see what he does. But moving on to another big week 3 showdown, 49ers, Packers. Logan or Sam, I know you're the Packers homer. What do you think about this game? You don't have to give me a score prediction yet. We'll talk about this a little bit later, though.
Yeah, well, I got hurt last week. To remind everyone, my underdog money line was the Eagles beating the 49ers. And that didn't happen. 49ers showed up and the Eagles, were the Eagles. But, I think this is going to be probably a decisive moment for the layout between both these two games of what the NFC is going to look like, right? I think Rodgers is going to keep on this climb up, and I think they're going to, perform. And I mean, I don't know, that 49ers defense is just so good, but their offense right now just doesn't seem to be clicking. I mean, there's no Kittle connection, right? How long can you ride the Debo train for? I don't really know if any solid options. So, I think it's a close one, but yeah, maybe it's my Aaron Rodgers homer in me. I'm leaning Packers.
Logan, what about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, so you're Aaron Rodgers, you sipping the Tom Brady and the Aaron Rodgers Kool-Aid. Yeah, both at the same time, double fisted. But
he's he's my thumbnail from yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, we got to look at this one. I don't necessarily disagree with you that offense has a few things to figure out. How many injuries can the 49ers running back sustain? I mean, it's incredibly depleted out there. It doesn't seem to bother their defense one bit. Their defense is what's keeping them in games. And that's why I might not necessarily pick against the Packers in this one, just because how decimated the 49ers are. I definitely think the 49ers are going to hang around. They're going to be annoying. This is by no means going to be a blowout. But yeah, I could see the Packers edging on a late field goal until the 49ers, sign Christian McCaffrey or just a player like that. There's no real. Yeah. Oh, Le'Veon Bell. Yeah. No, go take him for the Ravens.
Practice squad.
Yeah, there you go. No, they definitely need some more running back depth. And Ayuk, what's going on with Brandon Ayuk as a Brandon Ayuk fantasy owner? I hate to put him on my bench and just ride my bench like he is, but yeah, there's some offensive question marks for sure in the Bay.
Yeah, Ayuk's been one of the weirder developments of this year in fantasy football. A lot of people were like all in on him. And what does he have? 1 catch for 6 yards through 2 games or something like that. Tough. Hardly playing any snaps. Really weird. And he's a very talented player. People that had him last year picked him up off the waiver wire. They were pleased with what he did the second half of the year. Weird game, but I do like the 49ers in this one. And I think George Kittle's due for a big game. People that, are doubting him in fantasy football through weeks 1 and 2, they didn't have to use him. But if you look at the Packers, I believe this game is in San Fran. So that obviously plays into the effect for the 49ers. But we all saw what my man, TJ Hawkinson, did to that Packers defense. They couldn't guard him. Now Kittle, very similar player to a guy like TJ Hawkinson. I think the 49ers will do all the research. Kyle Shanahan will see, they could not guard TJ Hawkinson. Let's put George Kittle in similar route trees. Boom. And I think George Kittle will do a big game. Now we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But I like the 49ers. They obviously came up with a low-scoring victory over the Philadelphia Eagles in week 2. Wasn't necessarily something that, their offense didn't look overly that great. But the Philadelphia Eagles do have a pretty decent defense, and we'll see how they do in week 3 on Monday Night Football. Either way, what's up, Logan?
Can I ask you? I was going to ask you, because you're talking about Kittle. Would you hammer some Kittle props? Because I totally agree with you. I think we saw how you attack that Packers defense. Right in the tight end spot. You're gonna hammer some Kittle props for the people this weekend.
I'm gonna be curious to see what they do, because obviously it's like 2 bad games. What do they do in the third? Do they lower it to where it's like disrespectful, or do they, like they did with, like, unrelated, but like South Carolina's over under was this past weekend, team total was 6.5 points. That was disrespectful. Do they do something like that to Kittle where it's like 40.5 receiving yards? Yeah, they could. I believe Hawkinson's was like 48.5 I believe on Monday night. I don't know. We'll see. Obviously it's a Sunday game, so I'll have it in my Thursday video posted tomorrow, and I hope we have a lines for it, but I don't know. We'll see what I feel about George Kittle. I do think he has a good game, but not sure if I'm willing to put any money on it just yet. I kind of want to see it to believe it, But moving on, we're gonna move into our underdog picks. And one side question, Duncan asked if there are actually we'll cover that in a little bit. So your favorite segment, week 3 underdog money line picks. Now we're going to talk about it. Obviously, Logan, last week, cash Panthers money line moves to 1-1 on the season. Sam, like he said earlier, picked the Eagles. What was he doing? Moves to 1-1 on the season. I highlighted someone's 2-0. That would be me. I picked the Cowboys, obviously, last weekend, got a big win at the end of regulation. And so I'm going to lead off this one. And we got a special segment. We're going to talk about college football underdog picks as well after this one. But I'm going to start with mine, and it might be a really stupid play when it all pans out. I'm going to ride with the Chicago Bears plus 260 versus who are they playing? Yeah, I think they will get the win this weekend against the Browns. That's their plan. The Browns, they haven't really impressed overall through 2 weeks. Now, you looked at week 1, they're like against the Chiefs, probably could have won that game. Then week 2, they beat the Texans, but that's not saying overly too much. They won by 10 points, but they were tied at halftime. I think this Bears team has a fighting chance. Now, should they win? No, absolutely not. But this plus 260, it's getting great value on it. I do like the Bears to pull off an upset this week. Now, we do not know if Justin Fields will be starting or Andy Dalton. It still remains to be seen. Either way, I like either of them in. If Justin Fields is in there, it's going to be hard to game plan for that guy because it's going to be a much different offense than what they've been seeing with Andy Dalton. Either way, taking the Bears in an upset over the Cleveland Browns, who don't have any more pass catchers. Jarvis Landry moved to the IR. Now they're going to be rocking in Njoku, Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think he's healthy. And yeah, that's about it. So, Baker Mayfield's injured too. Give me the Bears for the upset pick in week 3.
Watching that Bears offense, I just don't know what to make of it.
It's a mess.
There's like a Taysom Hill dynamic, right? Where, we're going to run gadget stuff with Justin Fields, but like, that's not what his long-term is, right? So like, why is this guy coming in red zone situations? It doesn't work with Andy Dalton. I just don't see, you're not a win now team. So why are you doing this kind of awkward dynamic where I just don't see what the long term is, and I don't see how you can grow and depend on one player when you're going back and forth between the two in red zone situations. So I don't know. I think it's good value at plus 260, but no, I like the Browns in that one.
Yeah, you got to think about it. It's Matt Nagy. No one ever said he was smart. Obviously, I think Bears fans are kind of clamoring him to get out of town before he ruins Justin Fields. Kind of give him like an Adam Gase, which he does not deserve to be compared to Adam Gase. No one deserves that. The last quick note about my Bears pick, I'd like their defense. Now, a lot of people are talking about week 1. And sure, they left Cooper Kupp run naked, wide open downfield, as well as Van Jefferson. That was week 1. This was a lot of new cornerbacks, a lot of new faces in the secondary. Saw them in week 2. They sharpened up. They got a couple picks on Joe Burrow. I think 3 picks, like almost in a row. The defense looked super good. They really only gave up 3 points up until the final 4 minutes when the Bengals got 2 touchdowns, and then the Bears iced it with a couple first downs. So I really like this Bears team. I think they got a good chance. So right now, I think plus 7.5. Maybe they'll be in my Thursday video in terms of spreads I'm liking. But I like the Bears to pull out this victory against the Browns, even though they're in Cleveland. But moving on, we'll move on to Logan. Since Sam, you missed last week. You got to go to the bottom, my friend. That's just how it works. Logan, congrats on your Panthers cash last week. What do you got this week?
Okay, so now this one, granted, it is up in the air. There's injury concerns galore in this game, but something. Whenever I open the NFL week slate, I'm just like, what kind of stands out to me? I don't know. The Miami Dolphins at plus 168, traveling to Vegas. Yes, I definitely think the Dolphins stand a good chance to pull off the upset. Is it really going to matter if Tua's playing? I don't know a ton, right? You know, Brissett is a game manager type quarterback, and the Raiders are due some regression. I think that's kind of built into the line here. If you look at it, the Raiders are not huge favorites. We know they've impressed the first 2 weeks of the season, but this is the NFL, right? Every single given Sunday, you get a different version of the team. Are the Raiders finally going to come back down to that kind of mediocre second half of the season? They easily could, and this is easily a spot that the Dolphins just get really hyped up for. Yeah, I know I'm taking a little bit of a leap of faith, not even knowing really who the starting quarterback is going to be for the Dolphins, but I don't think it matters a ton. They have enough offense to get it done. They've got some question marks for sure, but look at the line. I mean, I just feel like everyone and their mother is going to be hammer Raiders, right? With good reason, and Austin, you and I know from doing this enough. You know, those are traps. This is a potential trap spread for Vegas.
It really is. I mean, you're picking a team that scored as many points as us three did. They scored 0 points. I think I made the joke that the Bills were minus 3.5, and they almost covered minus 35 against the Dolphins last week, 35-0. That was insane. I do think they bounce back. Whether they get the win or not, they could cover. I mean, it's going to be, like you said, it's kind of a trap spread. It's like the Dolphins didn't show up last week. Tua's got injury concerns. Whether or not he plays or not is already a question in itself. And so it's like Jacoby Brissett didn't inspire anyone. He didn't come in and light the field on fire. He wasn't insane. Obviously, he put up 0 points as well as Tua. So it's not necessarily saying he was overly that good. So I like the pick. I like the courage, and I'll rock with you on it. Sam, what's your underdog money line pick for week 3? Let's see if you can get off the snide, get back onto a winning streak.
Well, you guys might as well just get me a cheesehead because I talked about
God.
so much. Now, I am going to pick the Packers, currently at plus 150 on FanDuel over the 49ers. And this is back-to-back weeks I'm picking against the 49ers. But Aaron Rodgers, you know, like he famously said, you just got to relax, right? They're back. He's gonna do what Aaron Rodgers does, and I like them in that game to reassert themselves a little more dominance than people have been giving them credit the first 2 weeks of the season.
Come on, man. I mean, we already kind of clamored you for your Packers pick already earlier. We knew it was coming. We do show notes, and I knew you picked the Packers. So I'll let you ride with it for this one, but I need to get you one of these bad boys. If you keep down the 49ers, they sit up in their chair and like, all right, bet Sam picked against us again. All right, fine. We'll show them who's boss. Logan, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know. Having the Packers as an underdog in that game kind of makes you stop and think, like, why? Why are they doing this, right? The Packers seem pretty tempting, right? Aaron Rodgers got it all figured out and everything. Niners are just one of those teams. I'm telling you, they're built differently. They're so scrappy, and they like when people are down them. They like they perform well in those situations at home. I look, Rodgers might be on his back a lot. He's gonna have a lot of grass stains on that white jersey for sure against that Niners defense.
I don't think they can put up the offense that they need to be able to put up to go toe-to-toe with Rodgers if he's clicking like he was last night.
Well,
I mean, it's
Lions,
hard not
Niners, a little bit different, right?
A little bit of a difference there. Niners are obviously a much better defense than the Detroit Lions are. So but we'll see how that one pans out. Those are our week 3 underdog moneyline picks in the NFL. But a new segment inspired by one of our Twitter followers, C Elite Kid with 2 Ds. On Twitter, he asked for our favorite college underdog picks. Now, Logan, I know you do the underdog picks on your channel, and you cashed last week. You picked Michigan State plus 200 basically odds, cashed it, and it was a no sweat bet. They won by 16 points. So congrats to you for that one. And you're sitting out this segment. You have to go watch Logan's video on Friday morning for his week 4 CFB underdog pick. But Sam, I'm going to let you kick off this one. I know we are UCF homers and we're down bad. I forgot to mention in the injuries, Dylan Gabriel out for the year. So we're starting Mikey Keene. We'll see how UCF does. But I think we're off this weekend. But either way, Logan or Sam, give me your underdog pick for week 4 in college football.
Yeah, not betting on UCF this week, but I am betting on UCF's old former glorious coach.
Yeah.
Nebraska's playing ranked Michigan State. I think Michigan State's 22 or 23. Spread currently is 4.5, obviously in favor of Michigan State. Money line's like plus 175. I like Nebraska. They kept it close. Obviously, they lost last week against Oklahoma, but they kept it reasonably. They were never, completely out of it, and they had a chance at the end. And you look at the rest of Nebraska's schedule down later in the season, it only gets so much worse, right? After this, they still got Michigan. They still have Ohio State. I think they end the season with Iowa. So it's going to get uglier. And so this is kind of Nebraska's, I think, defining moment to kind of say, what direction is this season going to go in? Is it going to be the same as his last two, where it's just kind of lackluster? Or are they going to pull something out and maybe start to gain some traction and redefine Nebraska as a player? So I think it'll be close, but I like Nebraska.
Logan, before you chime in, because you're our CFB expert, Sam stole my pick. That was going to be my underdog pick. I'll get into mine after Logan responds. I'm all in on Scott Frost, Adrian Martinez. Give it to me. They beat in the Michigan State Spartans 2 straight times, although I think the last time they played in East Lansing was back in like 2015 or 2012. But the last game they won, if you took the under, it was a no sweat bet, I believe in 2018. Final score 9-6. And I don't believe the Nebraska Cornhuskers scored until the fourth quarter with 3 straight field goals. And spoiler, that was Scott Frost, I believe, first year coaching Nebraska. So maybe he's got a little more juice in the tank. And he arguably needs this win. And the spread seems a little fishy. And Logan, you can probably touch on this because I don't think everyone's going to be hammering Michigan State. This spread might go from 4.5 to 5 to 5.5. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So maybe wait to place in Nebraska if you're all in on Sam and I's pick. But I have a better pick for you. Logan, what are your thoughts on that Nebraska?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, I think everyone and their mother's just going to be, boom, hammer Michigan State. Michigan State looked really good last week versus a really in the toilet Miami team, right? We talked about what Sparty did for me on my upset pick. You call me a college football expert. I had a bad week last week. Not an expert. Not an expert. Amateur over here for sure. I need to put that out there. But no, we try my best. And every single week I look at the college football slate and I'm like, what sticks out? This was definitely one that stuck out to me. Nebraska played Oklahoma really, really tough last week. They were an annoyance to anyone who bet Oklahoma spread. No, Nebraska didn't just fold like we thought under Scott Frost. I like the direction Nebraska's going in, but the big question, can they stop Kenneth Walker, right? Kenneth Walker is such a beast at running back. That's how Michigan State thrives, is through the running game. So if Nebraska gets a few explosive plays, think Sam and Austin, I think you guys are both in a really good territory with that pick. But Austin, let's hear your underdog pick.
All right, so I got a weird one for you. It's not going to be a ranked team, anything but that. Maybe a ranked team after this week. I'm rocking with the Wake Forest. What are they, Demon Deacons? They're on Demon time, and I'm taking them. They're versing Virginia. And now here it is. Virginia, they're a basketball school, not a football school. They are bad. And if you want to see how bad they are, let me pull up some stats for you. Last week, you'd think their quarterback threw for, I believe a Virginia high 554 yards, 4 touchdowns, and they still lost by 20 points. They gave up 59 points to North Carolina, who have been struggling on offense, led by Sam Howell. Gave up almost 700 yards of offense, 699 to be exact. Wake Forest, 3-0 this year. This game is on Friday night. So if anyone wants to watch it Friday at 7 p.m., I don't know if I'll be watching it necessarily. And maybe they make me look like a fool when you're watching this on Saturday. But either way, you look at Wake Forest, big win against Florida State. Not saying all too much. Florida State going in the wrong direction. They're 3-0 on the year. And this is a big win. This could be a big chance for them at Virginia, where I was just at. And I'm riding with Wake Forest. And didn't even mention the odds, plus 160, currently 4.5 point underdogs. I'm in on Wake Forest. I think they got a good chance to knock off this Virginia team on the road. Lock it in.
I really like that pick too. What do I always say whenever I do my picks video? What does ACC stand for? All Cupcake Conference, right? These teams beat up on each other all the time, and Wake Forest, they beat up on Florida State, a atrocious Florida State team. Got to get the shots in at the Seminoles, so I can. But I definitely think Wake Forest has the offense to take down Virginia. Look, Virginia's not impressing anyone this year. Like you said, Austin, plus 160, really good value on that. I would lock at him with you.
Yeah, Virginia. I mean, Wake Forest averaging 39 points a game. they're not a bad team. You know, pretty balanced. Average over 125 rushing yards a game. Looking at all these numbers, I'm a big Wake Forest fan.
You came armed with the stats. I love that.
But I like them, and I think they got a chance. Like you said, ACC very similar to the AAC as UCF fans, which we're getting out of there. We're going to the Big 12. Maybe we'll do a separate podcast on that. Maybe we'll hammer home the Big 12. But regardless, these games happen all the time. It's a Friday night. Anything can happen on Friday nights and Friday night lights. Anything can happen. I'm riding Wake Forest. I think they got a good chance to pull off an upset this week in college football. Obviously, it's a Friday game. So we're rocking Wake Forest plus 160. Nebraska, I believe, is like plus 160 as well, maybe plus 170. Both 4.5-point underdogs. That's what I like to see. Logan, we'll wait for yours in your Friday video. Now we're going to move on to, before we talk about Thursday night football, maybe a couple other questions, we're going to talk about a Survivor League. I wanted to introduce this new segment into this podcast. Now, I know a lot of people out there playing Survivor Leagues. If you don't know what a Survivor League is, it's a league which kind of might be too late to kind of start one, and maybe not, but a Survivor League means you pick one team every week and then to win. And if that team wins, you advance to the next week, and then you can never pick that team again. So last week, I believe my pick was, who did I take? I don't remember exactly who I took. I think I took the Broncos. I took the Broncos over the Jaguars, and they obviously, right? That's who they played. I'm blanking out. Broncos played the Jaguars, right? Yeah, that's who they played. And so I took them last week, and they got a big win. But who's your favorite Survivor? I know a lot of people didn't take Broncos because they probably didn't want to trust them. So who's your guys' favorite Survivor League pick? I'll let you, Logan, start off with one.
Yeah. So speaking of Broncos, that's hello JETS, Jets.
Woo!
If you open up the sports book, hammer Broncos. No, I mean really, they really shouldn't have any trouble facing you ship out Sam Darnold, right? And you just bring in a young guy and you're crushing him so early with 4 interceptions. What the heck are you doing, Jets? It's just atrocious. Bottom of put on every Jet fan deserves a clown nose. It should be in there. It should be in the game day pack. You know, they have the banners, they have free t-shirts. They should have a clown nose because you're being big clowns by supporting.
Yeah, instead of handing out those things that you pull across that say Jets,
I'm a clown.
Hey, here you go.
You'll need this game time. Teddy Bridgewater, ex-Carolina Panther from last year. Teddy's the game manager, but really this year he's off to a pretty good start. Jets defense isn't going to present any problems for him, not one bit. And the Jets offensive line, ever heard of blocking? No, they yell away and just they let free rushers and poor Wilson. I'm just gonna say that's a no lose pick for me in the Survivor League for sure.
Maybe a spoiler alert. I might be taking the Jets team total under if it's not disrespectful. They make it like 6.5. I can't do it. Like
what about 2.5? What about a field goal?
Hammer. I need a hammer. That should be a new prop that I pull on set.
Yeah.
Logan or Sam, I know I'll give you my Survivor League pick, Sam. You can think of yours if you don't have one. But I'd like the Cardinals to win this week. I feel like a lot of people are just going to be rinse and repeat. They're playing against the same teams. You pick against the Lions or you pick against – and I don't mind the Ravens pick either. Maybe, Sam, you can take the Ravens if you want. But I'm taking the Cardinals this week. I think they're a good Survivor League team. And I think you're obviously versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, I'm not necessarily ready to hammer the Cardinals to go out there and cover that 7.5-point spread because I don't know if I can necessarily trust this Cardinals team to stop a nosebleed. Don't play a whole lot of defense, but I can't trust Kyler Murray to, in the end, make enough plays to get a win. So if you haven't used the Cardinals, which I doubt you have after the first 2 games so far this year, you probably didn't use them against the Vikings, and I believe week 1 you didn't use them against the Titans. So you're rocking the Cardinals. Don't mind them using them up this week. They want to have a lot easier matchups than against the Jacksonville Jaguars in a must-win game. You can't lose these games in the NFL. Sam, what's your Survivor League pick if people are still out there playing in Survivor Leagues?
I mean, my strategy is always right. Pick the good team if they're playing a mediocre team, or pick the really bad teams if they're playing anybody, right? And looking at the slate this next week, week 3, a lot of good teams playing good teams, right? We said Bucks, Rams, Packers, 49ers. So even Kansas City playing Los Angeles, staying away from all that stuff, right? Those are good teams playing good teams. So this week, my strategy would be, pick the bad teams. Pick the Jets to lose, like you guys said. Pick the Jags to lose. If you can do a Thursday night thing, pick the Texans to lose. I know you had said, Austin, that might not work in some.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll get into Panthers-Texans in a second.
No, but I'm saying
I understand.
that kind of a good segue into it. That's another, I think, definitive lock, not to jinx your team there, Logan. But yeah, I mean, look at what Houston's thrown out there for quarterback. I'm liking the Panthers as a win this week.
Yeah, and we can segue into Panthers-Texans overview, although I do want to say, there are some cool matchups going in. We didn't talk about Eagles-Cowboys, but that is a big matchup. I'm looking forward to watching a Monday Night Football. I have a separate video out for that on Sunday night, talking about my best bets for that game. But yeah, we'll segue into Panthers-Texans Thursday Night Football game. Logan, your team coming off a big win against the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. Quick bounce back versus obviously the Houston Texans, like we talked about earlier. Tyrod Taylor is out for at least 3 weeks. He's on IR. Here comes Davis Mills, I believe a rookie quarterback. Didn't necessarily inspire a lot of people in his, I believe he started, I don't know if you guys know exactly when Tyrod Taylor went out, but I think it was early in the second half, if not at the end of the first half. But what are your thoughts on the Panthers currently? 7.5-point favorites, over under sitting around 43.5 points.
Yeah, look, as the resident Panther fan here, I'd love to hammer Panthers -7.5, but I simply won't be doing that. Look, I know how the Panthers treat me as a fan, right? They have a really good, impressive win one week, and then the next week they're struggling to beat the bad team that they really should beat. Well, I definitely do expect them to beat Davis Mills, right? Davis Mills had a play in there that I just said, oh man, Brian Burns is going to feast all over him. He was standing up, and there was a free rusher just coming right at him, and his pocket presence was zero, right? And you see that a lot with these rookies. They don't have a lot of pocket presence. Carolina's defense is definitely strong up front. They got a lot of good edge rushers that should keep this game. Panthers should win, but I don't know about that 7.5. I'm not just going to assume that's a lock. One bit on that one, but yeah, Davis Mills, throw him to the Wolves. Let's go eat.
Throw him in. Yeah, I mean, the Panthers defense is okay. Please never do that again, or else we'll have to find a replacement. But yeah, that 7.5-point line is a tricky one. If you can, I'd probably bet it down to like 6.5 at the best. A lot of games end on 7 points, kind of a backdoor cover. Even I believe the Lions had a chance to backdoor last night, and they almost did with the throw to the end zone for a touchdown to lose by, I think, 11. I think the spread was 11.5. So not ready. I'll give you a score prediction in a little bit, but I do like the Panthers in this one, and a prop that I'm looking for, and we'll have a separate video up tomorrow or later tonight, Wednesday. I believe around like 8 p.m. You'll see my Thursday night video come out. What are you guys' thoughts on CMC over under is right now 134.5 rushing plus receiving yards? What are you feeling, Sam? You can give us your early take and as well as your take on that prop line.
I mean, watching him in person, he is the Panthers offense, right? There really isn't much else. So while you look at that number, you're like, that's a crazy thing to bet the over on. I'm betting the over on that. I mean,
you're not betting the under, right?
No,
can't do that.
No. So yeah, no, I think he gets that done, and it's any combination of things, right? Like when you break it out into 90 yards rushing and whatever it is, 45 yards receiving, you're like, oh yeah, it's pretty doable. You might even get that in the first half the way he's been playing. So yeah, no, I like CMC's over in yards. I don't know. As for the 7.5 spread, yeah, I think the Panthers could let that one come closer than they should have. So I'm probably staying away from that. Or betting it if it gets closer.
Yeah, Logan, what are your thoughts? Chime in.
Yeah, I mean, look at you, Sam, finally coming around to that CMC talk. I know you were so annoyed when we were watching that game, and I was like, they just feed him. He's a fiend, right? He's the number one fantasy player, always drafted for a reason. He is the Carolina Panthers offense. You nailed that one. And I definitely. You do not hammer the under on Christian McCaffrey, especially because the Panthers, they really do run him into the ground. Watching those games, especially against the Saints, I was like, you can give him a break anytime soon. He can come off the field. No. The Panthers keep him in all 3 downs. He is one of those players that just comes out maybe a couple plays a game. They really he's just such a high usage player. You don't hammer it under on a player of that caliber. I definitely think he could hit the over in that one, right? Texans defense doesn't inspire any confidence in anyone, but yeah, run CMC. You see the shirt. Come on. I mean, no unders for me.
Of course, we would never expect you to take an under on Christian McCaffrey. Of course not.
No.
Yeah, it's going to be, I'm still looking at props for my video later today, and we'll kind of talk about them, and maybe I'll normally pick one prop and then one over under or spread and then a same game parlay. CMC will be featured in something in that capacity. The man's an absolute legend. Now, I do think, he plays a ton of snaps, 24 carries last week. I think he had 30 touches against the New York Jets. I think 20. So I said 24 carries, but also 5 more catches, 29 and 30 touches in back-to-back weeks. The man's insane, and you've already hinted at Texans run defense is not too good. So you don't hammer an under on CMC. You either take the over or you don't bet it at all, in my opinion. And maybe he'll get on the over tomorrow, but it is a little hesitant because this game could get out of hand. You never really know. And then, they might run Chuba Hubbard. I don't know how to pronounce his name exactly, but he didn't inspire a lot of people. 8 carries, 10 yards last week. And that included a long rush of 9 yards. So 7 other carries went for a big total of 1 yard. And maybe we had a long negative play in there. But either way, we'll see what we think about that one. But we'll move into our predictions for that game. I'll let you start it off, Logan, since you are a Panthers homer. What is your score prediction? And yeah, go from there.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this one. This is one of those. I say Panthers 24-21. It's just gonna be one of those games. I just know that everyone's gonna be like, oh, this game stinks. Panthers should win easily. Looked impressive so far, but that's the NFL. Texans are gonna come out a little bit inspired. The question really is how good the rookie quarterback can play. Sometimes good enough, right? Sometimes that's all you need. Maybe they'll get some sneaky run yards, but yeah, 24-21 is my score prediction. Carolina Panthers.
All right, Sam, hit me with yours.
I like the Panthers. A rookie quarterback like that, it's hard to put up points. Not that I'm putting money on the spread, but I think I like them like 21-13. I think they'll win decisively, but they should blow them out, and it'll probably be closer than that.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth like Logan on this one. I don't know if I'll necessarily. I've been trying to think of a spread or over under that I'll be taking, and I honestly don't like either of the lines. 43.5. I don't like. I always like to bet overs on Thursday Night Football, but that Texans team could go out there and it could be a Bills Dolphins 2.0 game, 35-0. Logan will be running around the streets with the shirt off. But it's like, I don't want to take an over and then see the Texans just come out there and lay a goose egg. And I'm relying on the Panthers to score 44 points. Over under is 43.5. So my score prediction, though, I will take the Panthers. So maybe we're jinxing it. All of us on the Panthers train. I'm going to go. I think they get up some points. I think it's going to be 31-17. I do think the Texans get a couple touchdowns late in there, and they do hit the over in a late last second touchdown. But I think the Panthers cover and win this game pretty handily. So, any other last thoughts on it? It's going to be an exciting game. I'll have a full separate video on it later. Any other thoughts, Logan? Have you liked I think you've liked what you've seen out of Sam Darnold so far this year. I don't know what's not to like.
Yeah, early impressions, right? This is the NFL, and you can say, well, Carolina has played two pretty crappy teams so far. Yeah, the Saints didn't look great one bit. But I'm liking what I see Sam Darnold, right? He's got that confidence. He's got that swagger, right? This is what we saw when he was at USC, and he was this highly touted draft pick. And then he was just ruined by this trash can of a franchise.
Hey, we didn't deserve this.
No, you did deserve it. You've tried ruining Sam, and he got a second chance at a decent career. And with Carolina Panthers, they've, like I said, the biggest takeaway from me so far is that defense. That was the biggest question. I knew we had all the offensive weapons, right? DJ Moore, CMC, all those people, but that defense, it's young, it's hungry, and they're coming, right? I just hope they can play like it on this Thursday. Hopefully, we did not jinx it. I could easily be very disappointed on Friday, knowing that Panthers just lost the game that they should. But I'm a believer. Let's make it 3-0.
Yeah, that would be a great start to the season for the Carolina Panthers and Matt Rule. The other defense has looked really good, led by what is Derek Brown, J.C. Horn, Spida, Burns. They look pretty good.
Yeah,
and so it's one of the bets I've been looking at for Thursday night. Is I want to take the Texans team total under sitting around I think 17.5. I want to take it, but it's a Thursday night game. You just never know. We saw Washington football team versus the New York Giants put up a whole lot of points, like 60 something, almost 60 points last week. Weird game to kind of predict. I know, Logan, you were the only one of us to pick the Giants, and arguably they probably should have won. We won't sugarcoat it. Giants fans, we're sorry out there. I mean, it's a New York thing, New York state of mind. Is that what that is? It's tough to see. So I guess we'll see how this Thursday night game goes. Anything else you guys are looking forward to week 3? I mean, there's a bunch of other cool matchups. We don't want to talk about the Eagles Cowboys because obviously we're going to talk about that later on in the week, but the Chargers Chiefs, what do you guys think about that game? Because that's a game that I was honestly, if in the underdog picked, I was going to pick the Chargers to win, but I do not see the Kansas City Chiefs losing back-to-back games. Just doesn't think like something that will happen. But what do you think about that game, especially Justin Herbert? Are you guys panicking him in fantasy football? I believe he has 2 touchdowns so far, both I believe to Mike Williams in this far in the season. They just haven't been converting in the red zone. Are you pushing the panic button or just kind of letting it ride?
I mean, it's only been 2 weeks. I'm not pushing the panic button on Justin Herbert. The Chargers are notorious for losing, games close. So I think this is a close game with the Chiefs, who have come back down to earth after last week. But yeah, I mean, you're right. The Chiefs don't lose 2 straight. So I like them, but I like it in a close game. And yeah, I think it'd be nice to see Herbert kind of come back to his form from last year and get some things clicking that haven't really clicked the first 2 weeks of the year.
Logan, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think I'm really interested to see that game. What's the over under in that game? Do you have that pulled up?
Yeah, I'll pull it up right now for you. It is going to be, let's see, it is 55.5, the same actually as the Bucs versus Rams line, which is crazy, but I'm taking the over probably.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same wavelength there. I do think that's a game that you bet the over in for sure. I'm excited. I'm just excited to see these good teams play good teams, as Sam kind of touched on earlier, right? We've got this matchup. We've got the Bucs and Rams. I want to see some fireworks, right? You don't tune in to the NFL games to watch 10-3 type games, although they happen sometimes. But certainly these good matchups have a lot of fantasy value. The new age of stats and fantasy football and betting player props. It's all exciting, and that's what we tune in for on Sundays. I'm just very excited for these matchups.
Yeah,
This is going to be, yeah, what's up?
Too late for the NFL to flex one of those games instead of the Thursday night game? Because I think we would have.
They should be able to flex Thursday games.
Hey, look, do the Jets play any primetime games? Because if they do, that needs to be flexed immediately. That is an atrocious team that doesn't deserve any 1 minute over their coverage. Get them out of here.
Yeah, I don't blame you. We don't deserve any primetime games at all. But I'm sure we're on Monday Night Football, some stupid season randomly later on in the season. Be one of those games you see on Monday night and you're like, all right, I can actually go to bed at a reasonable time on a Monday night. Shame on the Jets. But that Chiefs-Chargers game going to be cool. Hope we get a high-scoring game. I know a lot of people were making same-game parlays last weekend, Chargers-Cowboys. What do we get? We got a pillow fight, 20-17, not a lot of touchdowns. I'm not pushing the panic button on Justin Herbert I own him in our league and I'm in on him. I do think he has a good week this week. He's been having a lot of passing yards, just not a lot of touchdowns in fantasy football. So he had like 330 something passing yards last week. Apologize to the friends outside. Hope everyone's okay. But I do think the Chargers, I think they might cover this, but 6.5. The last game we'll touch on, and you talked about the New York Jets, talk about their rival, the New England Patriots. Another one I considered for an underdog pick, but I wanted to go bold this week. Saints versus the Patriots. It's a weird game. You got the Patriots who, I mean, they haven't really done all too much. Play the Dolphins, lost by 1 point week 1. They just beat up on Zach Wilson, who looked like a rookie out there, to be nice to him. What are your thoughts on this game, Sam? I'll let you start since you're a Jets fan, and we'll let you chime in. But Patriots, I know you were all in on Mac Jones. Have you liked what you've seen out of him so far? They're 3-point favorites. Currently, Saints are plus 140 on the money line. I believe this game is at Gillette Stadium in New England.
Well, I mean, his performance has been through 2 games so unrookie-like. I think his stat line is he's thrown 1 touchdown and he has 0 turnovers. I mean, he's just been very conservative with the ball, Mac Jones, that is. And so, yeah, you throw him up against the Saints team that I really don't know what to make of after their snipping that performance the first 2 weeks. But, yeah, I think I'd like to see him, Mac Jones, air the ball out a little bit more, get a little more comfortable, maybe take a little more aggressive throws that he hasn't really had to make the first 2 weeks of the year. I still do like him, and I still think he's going to probably have the best season out of some of these rookie quarterbacks compared to how Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson have played the first 2 weeks of the season. So I think I like the Patriots, but yeah, it's one of those games. I really don't know which way it's going to go.
Yeah. What about you, Logan? Because you obviously watched the Saints absolutely collapse last week. They just
I know that was one of those spots I think for the Saints that was just tough, right? They were missing a ton of coaches with COVID protocols, and again they got some injuries all up and down that team. I do think this is a game the Saints might win. I'm not willing to die on the Jameis Winston Hill though. Right after I told you I was dying laughing just seeing him chuck that he was rare form Jameis last week against Carolina. So can Bill Belichick game plan against that and turn him back into the turnover machine? I don't really know. They need to get Alvin Kamara more involved for sure. I think we can all agree on that. I know there's a lot of there's a lot of panic or patience type narratives going on in fantasy football. Alvin Kamara is definitely one of those. And now, Austin, I need to ask you, right? You've nailed the Mike Williams pick. I listened to you. I listened to you. He's on my fantasy bench. He deserves a roster consideration for me next week. But what about Ezekiel Elliott? I just mentioned Alvin Kamara. I don't know if I need to hit the panic button yet on Zeke. What's your thoughts on that?
Zeke's an interesting one, and I'll talk about this more on Sunday night when I talk about this Cowboys-Eagles game. Zeke, I can understand why people are panicked. You see Tony Pollard go out there, light up the field. I mean, you had 100 yards rushing, a touchdown himself. But I'm not necessarily panicked. I believe Zeke Elliott played about 70-something% of the snaps. He's still on a very good offense. And I think they were just taking what the defense gave them. They were trying to stop Zeke Elliott, making them throw it. And, Tony Pollard's more of a, he's more of a gadget kind of speed kind of guy. Not like Zeke Elliott doesn't have speed, but it's not like he's going to necessarily run away from defenders like he might have used to be able to do. It's going to more run through them. I would be a little bit nervous, but you can't really trade him. You're not going to get what you drafted him for. And I know people in the fantasy community are like, you got to disregard what you spent on a player immediately. It's 2 weeks through the season, blah, 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 blah. But you still spent a high draft pick on him. You don't want to just be saying, all right, fine, I'm cutting bait, getting rid of Ezekiel Elliott and moving on from him. I still think he's a very good running back, still top 10 running back. But if you are able to get Tony Pollard, get him on your bench if you're a Zeke Elliott owner. And heck, maybe even start both of them. If you're that shallow, maybe you drafted CEH. I'd arguably start Tony Pollard over CEH. And I'm a CEH believer. I love Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but that man, especially fantasy football and real life football, just is not clicking with the Kansas City Chiefs. I hope they get him going maybe this weekend against the Chargers, a team that got run on by your Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard last week. Man, CEH is a weird player, but Tony Pollard should be rostered in a lot more leagues, but not ready to hit the panic button on Ezekiel Elliott, though. Not just yet. But my overall takeaway, bouncing back to this Patriots-Saints game, is it's a weird one. And I like you said, Logan, I'm not dying on the Jameis Winston hill. Now, I do think the Saints have a good chance of winning this game. I mean, you look at the Jets. The Jets had a chance to win that game if they just didn't turn over the ball 4 times. It's not like the Patriots were running up and down the field. The Jets just gave them great field position every single drive of the first half, first 5-10 drives. Great field position. So I think the Saints have a good chance. They got one of the better defenses in the league. Obviously, they lost and gave up a decent amount of points to the Panthers, but I do think the Saints got a decent chance this week. Any other takeaways for week 3 before we wrap this up?
No, nothing for me. I mean, I'm looking forward to these late 4:00 games. That's where the most to learn about the top tier of the NFL stands is in that later slate of games. So
yeah, I mean, I'm glad they put the Giants, Falcons, and Lions and Jags, and when the Jets are a 4:00 game. You don't like to see that.
Yeah.
That would be a 4:00 game to tune off. But yeah, Rams, Bucks, Raiders, Dolphins will be decent, and the Vikings, Seahawks, a very interesting matchup. That spread is very trapped. I would think Seahawks are -1.5 point favorites. But that'll do it for the 4th episode of the Call on Our Shot podcast. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you haven't downloaded the podcast, if you're listening and downloaded it, we appreciate you guys. Also, shout out to everyone joining the channel. We have 8,600 subscribers at the time of recording this. Absolutely unreal. We just passed 8,000, I think a week ago. So you guys have been killing it. Help us reach 10,000 subscribers. We appreciate all the love and support. Comment below your favorite underdog pick, and we want to see what you guys are betting on this weekend. Obviously, we got a lot more videos coming out later today. Wednesday night, we'll have our Thursday night football video, and then Thursday morning, we'll have our full NFL slate. A lot of fun content coming your way. From Austin, for Logan, for Sam, this has been the Call on Our Shot podcast, and we'll catch you guys again next week, Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This has been Austin. We'll catch you guys later. Peace out.